Hey guys, this is Ray with DRP Motorsports and welcome back to the shop. Looking at our 2019 Mustang GT again today, and I thought I'd do a little short video showing the drag race setup we've got on the car, particularly the drag pack, if you will, the wheel and tire combination, because I have a few questions about, you know, what I run, what other guys run, what works, and anyway, I'll show you what I've got, and that way you can kind of use it as an example maybe to follow if you wish. Well, first of all, let's talk about the tires and wheels. Up front, we've got the drag pack set up, and that consists of you know, skinny tires up front, wide tires in the rear, maximum traction, less rolling resistance up front, lighter weight. So up front, we've got some Weld Alumistar 2.0s. These are 18 by 6 inch wheels, and you can see it right there. On these wheels we're running the Mickey Thompson Sportsman SR tires, and they are 28 by 6 by 18s. You can drive them on the highway. They are DOT legal. I mean, I wouldn't suggest making it a daily driver with this setup, but I mean, if you want to drive it to the track, it works. You can see the bare drag racing lightweight brakes that we've got on the front of this car. Moving on to the rear, we've got these Weld S71 beadlock wheels, and these are 17 by 10s, guys. I like the run the 17s in the rear. Gives you a little more sidewall on the tire, which helps you to get a little better contact patch when you're at the drag strip, and give you a little better traction than would be if you had an 18-inch setup. So 18s up front, 17s in the rear, and like I said, these are 17 by 10 inch. As far as the tires, we're running Mickey Thompson ET Streets, and these are 305 45 17s. They have just a little bit of tread on them. You can barely see it. They are street legal, but again, you wouldn't want to make this a daily commute. These tires are really sticky, so if you go in and out of rock driveways, it's going to pick those up and sling them. And with the reduced tread pattern on it, you're definitely not going to take it out in the rain. If you do, you're going to be skating around like you're on ice. But yeah, and you can see the bare brakes in the rear. So we've done that for weight reduction. So that's the tire and wheel setup. As far as other things for weight reduction, we've got a Steeda tubular K member in here. You might can see it up under there. Turn the camera a little bit and you might can see it. Really hard to see, but it's up under there, and that saves a good bit of weight off the front versus the stock K member. And we've got an Anderson's composite carbon fiber hood, and that reduces a little bit of weight. With this, right now this car's got a supercharger up under the hood, and then a supercharger does add weight to the car overall. So if you're going to put a supercharger on it, you definitely want to try to lighten it up in the front a little bit if you can, to try to help the weight distribution. As far as suspension goes, this car is sitting on the Steeda drag spring setup and their shocks. It does lower the car a little bit, stiffens it up, but it works for the drag strip. Also have some few BMR components up under the car as well. I've got their let's see if you can see it. Got the frame connectors up under there. And also got a few other components up under the rear of the car that's BMR components. So it's a mixture of BMR and Steeda. It works for me. You know, it might not work for everybody else, but that's what I'm running. And last but not least, safety wise, got a Watson Racing roll cage in the car. You definitely want to have that at the very least. I mean, that's a minimal cage. You know, you can use it in a street vehicle. It's not a full cage, but that's what I've got in the car right now. It's what is it, 6 point, I believe. But anyway, it bolts in, stiffens up the car a little bit, gives you a little bit of safety in case of a rollover. So don't skip on the safety equipment. But anyway, that's the drag race setup as far as tires, wheels, suspension, weight savings. There's a few little things in the tuning that I'm going to cover here in just a moment to kind of go along with this, especially since this is a 10R80 car. Okay guys, continuing on with the discussion of the drag race setup on our 2019 Mustang is tuning wise, particularly pertaining to a 10R80 car like this car. It's got a 10R80 automatic transmission. If you're not familiar with it, it's a 10-speed automatic. Now Ford, this was a collaboration actually between Ford and General Motors to build this transmission, and it's a fabulous transmission for what it was intended for. Particularly with these Coyote engines, you know, they are high revving. They do make great torque down low, but they're really famous for their top end power. And having a 10-speed transmission allows this engine, when it goes through the gears, to stay in its power band as it goes through the gears. You know, you got your gear ratios are really tight and close together, so when it shifts it, the RPMs really doesn't drop that much, and it keeps it in that high RPM range. And that's what really helps make these third gen Coyotes really fast. Now when I say that, I'm talking particularly, you know, in a stock or near stock or naturally aspirated form. Now when you boost these Coyotes, you add a lot more low end torque. So when you add a lot more low end torque, you don't necessarily need that close ratio, particularly when you're taking off. One thing that is really noteworthy about the 10R80 transmission is the actual gear ratios in the transmission. It's a 10-speed, as I mentioned. 7th gear is your 1-to-1 ratio. Gears 8, 9, and 10 are all overdriven gears. And first gear is actually a 4.69 ratio. And that 4.69 ratio is to basically get you moving from a dead stop with a stock engine and a stock torque converter. So, you know, with a stock engine, stock torque converter, it's not going to make a lot of low-end grunts. So that 469 gear really gets you moving quick and then gets you going. And then the closer ratios of the upper gears will work well with the RPM power band of the engine to get you moving. But that 469 ratio, when you go with a boosted setup, I mean, even with a 315 axle ratio, you have the options of either a 315 or a 355. But even with that 315 axle ratio, if you're on boost and you're making a lot of torque, it's just simply not going to hook it to drag strip doing a first gear launch. So what a lot of tuners will do, and what we have done, is create a tune so that when you put the car in drag mode, it will automatically start out in second gear. Basically skips first gear, because first gear is pretty much worthless at the drag strip when you're running on boost and you got a lot of torque. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's start the car up. And we got a tire pressure monitor fault because there's no sensors in the wheels. But let me show you. All right. The car is in, you know, I'm gonna just put it in gear in sport mode. And when you put it in gear in sport mode, or even just regular drive, it starts out in first gear, okay? And that's how we've got it set up. But at the drag strip, you obviously most likely are going to put it in drag race mode. So let's do that. So drag strip mode. Now when we've got it in drag strip mode, and only drag strip mode, when we put the car in gear, watch what happens. All right, put it in gear first, let it roll just a little bit. Second. All right, it's stuck in second gear. It's not going to go back down in first. So you are able to launch the car in second gear at this point, and you don't have to worry about it going back down in first gear. It will not go back down in first gear. And that really helps a lot when you're drag strip, you know, trying to get a good 60 foot. Just for reference, mentioned before, first gear ratio is a 4.69 to 1. Second gear is a 2.98 to 1. So there's a big difference between first and second gear. And by launching in second gear, you're able to tame some of that torque down that a boosted engine makes. So anyway, I'll give you a little demonstration out on the road here shortly. It's not going to hook on the highway, but I'll show you how it works. Okay guys, I'll give you a little demonstration here on the highway of what I was talking about, doing a second gear launch. So I'm going to put the car in drag strip mode. Go. And simply put the car in drive. Let it roll just a little bit. There we go. It's locked in second. And we're going to wait for some of this traffic to clear out here in Mexico before we put it on the road and try it. Alright. We're on the road. Build it up. Launch. Doing the second gear on the regular highway surface is not going to cut it when you got 1,000 horsepower, but if it was a prep track surface, it might would hook. As always guys, thanks for following along. God bless each and every one of you, and we'll see you again soon.